Homicide 1906. The case of 27-year-old Carrie Thomas. Carrie Thomas was convicted of the murder of her illegitimate child, Frederick Thomas, aged 1 year and 5 months, and sentenced to death but reprieved. She threw him into the Sis at Ives Bay on the 11th of December 1905. The child was later found floating in the sea near Godrevy lighthouse. Carrie Thomas had been a servant girl from St. Earth. She admitted murdering him, saying that she did so because of the taunts she had received at his birth. She said that she also intended to drown herself as well, but said that she couldn't after seeing how her child had struggled. She said that the taunts and reproaches of her family had made her life miserable. In court she wore a black dress and coat and a white silk blouse and a large black sailor hat trimmed with black velvet. During the trial she showed no signs of excitement, other than when her child's clothes were shown as exhibits and when her mother referred to her in affectionate terms as "my good daughter," at which point she burst out into tears and required some time before she could be pacified. The court itself was practically filled with ladies, and when the judge passed sentence of death, there were not many dry eyes in the court, with even the counsel being visibly moved. The court heard that the child was born in Redruth workhouse on the 1st of August 1904, and some time after she left the workhouse and went to live with her mother, whilst the baby went to live with her married sister. Then, later on the 10th of December 1905, she said that she was going to take the child to Leland, and her mother gave her some money for the journey. When she returned, she came back without the child. The child was later found floating in the sea by a fisherman, fully clothed, and was identified as being the child of Carrie Thomas. Carrie Thomas had gone into Redruth workhouse on the 24th of July 1904 for the purpose of being confined. She left the workhouse in early September and took Frederick Thomas out to nurse at Cornwall, but later took the child back to her mother's. However, Frederick Thomas only stayed at his mother's house for 2 nights before he was taken to his aunt's house in High Lane, where he stayed until the early part of December 1905, for which Carrie Thomas paid 10 shillings a month and provided clothes. Carrie Thomas herself went to work at the National Explosives Works and continued to live at her mother's house. When in early December 1905 her sister told her she could no longer keep Frederick Thomas, Carrie Thomas took him back to her mother's, telling her mother that she was going to look for a good home for the child, saying that she could put him out to nurse at Leland. The following day, Carrie Thomas went to work as normal, and at 1 p.m. her mother fed Frederick Thomas. When Carrie Thomas returned home from the factory at 5 p.m, she had some tea and gave Frederick Thomas some stew and potatoes to eat, as well as some bread and milk. The mother went out for a few minutes, and when she came back, Carrie Thomas and the child were gone. However, Carrie Thomas didn't go to Leland, and instead returned to Hale in little more than half an hour. When she returned, she came back with Frederick Thomas's coat. When the mother asked her why she still had Frederick Thomas's coat, Carrie Thomas said, "The woman to whom I have taken Freddie had a coat which she would sell me for 3 shillings. The mother said that she then asked for the woman's name in Leland, but said that Carrie Thomas said, "What do you want to know this for?" And that was the end of the matter on the 11th of December 1905. The mother said that the next morning Carrie Thomas was crying bitterly at the breakfast table, but gave no reason for it, and then told her mother that she wanted to take the rest of Frederick Thomas's clothes and asked her to wash and iron them. Carrie Thomas then went off with the clothes, and when she returned, the mother asked how Frederick Thomas was, and said that Carrie Thomas said, "The child is getting on very well." Later, just before Christmas, Carrie Thomas left home to go into service at Penzance, where she remained until she came back to Hale on the 13th of January 1906. When she returned, she told her mother that Frederick Thomas had died and had been buried. She said that he had caught inflammation and had been blind for 3 days. She told her mother that she had had the child buried at Penzance and had a nice funeral for him, and a nice coffin with a breastplate upon which was inscribed his name and age, and also a nice verse upon it, which read, "Suffer little children to come unto me." At the trial, the prosecution referred to the story that she had told to her mother, but asked, what sort of funeral was it? The grave was the wide waters of the open sea, the mourners none but seabirds, and except for this curious finger of destiny, the crime might never have been traced or found out. The prosecution went on to relate how on the following Thursday, the body of Frederick Thomas was found by the captain of the fishing smack, Martha Quick, from St. Ives, who had been out fishing in the direction of Godrevy. The captain said that when they were about half a mile west of Godrevy Lighthouse, that their attention was attracted by seabirds hovering around a dark object. He said they put about, lowered the sail, and then took the object on board and found it to be a child. They then went back to St. Ives and handed the body to the police. A photograph was taken of the body, and a coroner's inquest held, which showed that without a doubt Frederick Thomas had died from drowning. There were no marks of violence on his body, save those inflicted by the beaks of the seabirds. When Carrie Thomas was shown the photograph, she said that it was exactly like her Freddie. On the evening of the 30th of January 1906, Carrie Thomas was at her sister's house, and her sister said to her, "There is a rumour about that you have drowned your child, and the police are looking out for you." The sister said that Carrie Thomas then said, "They are not, are they?" And the sister said, "Never mind, as long as you have the child's certificate to show that it is dead." However, Carrie Thomas replied saying that she wished she had the death certificate, adding, "I have drowned my little Freddie." When the police came to the house, she made a statement and was charged with the child's murder. She was convicted of murder at the Cornwall Assizes at Bodmin on the 23rd of June 1906 and sentenced to death, but later reprieved, her sentence being commuted to one of penal servitude for life. She was later released on licence on the 12th of August 1909.